came down here to the Slanted Nationals and put the first 3 runs on Plan Z, and we have a long way to go. But we'll worry about the science of what we're doing there later. So while we're just starting out with our Slant Six journey, this guy's been at it for a long time. His name is Greg Untitled, and this is a car that I've kind of followed here and there for how long have you been building that?
I started it in 2009.
2009.
Yeah, just started with a stock car that I got from my dad's car lot as a trade-in. Wouldn't pass in Pennsylvania inspection.
Right, that's about when I remember seeing it. I haven't seen it in this configuration, but going back, I don't know, I guess maybe 4 years ago, I had come across something on this car. And that was one of the things that actually got me thinking along the lines of the Slant Six.
Okay.
Working with them.
Great.
But anyway, Greg, give a tour of this thing. This is like an amazingly intense, like, I can't even describe it. This is the only one of its kind. There's nothing else like it. Why don't you give our guys a tour of it from front to back?
Yeah, sure. So, just a little background. My dad actually is a used car dealer. He's in the process of retiring. He sold this car originally in 1987 or 88 when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I rode in it before he sold it. It was all stock. And in about 2008, he took it back in on trade. And I was talking about getting out of my 69 Dart, which is a totally stock car that I tried to race and was very unsuccessful with it, and building a purpose-built race car. So I got this, and lots of rust on it, and I just came up with the name Ruster and did some graphics, cut off the R from the end, put the R on the beginning of the Duster logo, and had a big projector in my driveway one night and put it all on there with marker and paint. And it's kind of a Mad Max. Whatever I want to do to it, whatever comes to mind, whatever I want to cut off, modify, I do.
And you have cut off and modified a lot.
Yeah, the last time I measured it, it's about 2,100 and change. It does have frame connectors. It still has a stock front and rear frame. But yeah, a lot of hole saw, a lot of grinding, a lot of drilling, modifications. Yeah.
Look at the aero package that he's got. And it makes sense because when you're dealing with an engine that has as little horsepower in general as the Slant Six does, he's got the right idea. You know, keep the air from going underneath it because that's like a parachute. And I mean, it's crazy. But
the bumper cover is from the auto body shop trash. I think it's like some sort of Toyota,
right,
or maybe a van. And all the splitter, if you want to call it that, is same thing. It's all plastic. Just I upcycle or recycle materials and just make stuff. I don't have any fancy metalwork tools. I don't have brakes. I don't have shears. I don't have English wheels. So I'll use the edge of a table and just kind of make my bends and fit stuff in and close it off as needed.
Let's show under the hood.
Okay. Bring it all the way back. There you go. Okay. Yep. You know, I don't want to scratch the roof up. It's so nice. It's the nicest part of the car.
It's original paint.
It is original paint. Actually, all of this is somewhat of an original paint, other than the parts that I've cut off or patched or redone. Yeah.
Greg, what is going on under here?
So, this is not as trick as some of the other Slant Six cars that I've seen over the years, especially the ones that used to or have run in the Point series.
Right.
But all those guys, the Drakes, Team Green, Mark Goodman, Seymour Peterson, all those guys are kind of now getting out of racing and Slant Sixes. I've kind of studied their stuff and mimicked or modified and made it my own over the years.
So the first thing I noticed here is that there's no distributor. You've got...
Yeah, funny story on that. The no distributor is not by choice, it's kind of by happenstance. So I was at Clay City for a Slant Six race one year, and I go up to tech, and I noticed there's no oil pressure. The night before at Test and Tune, I had to put a plastic distributor gear on. It was cracking and popping, and the car had run great before that. Well, what was happening was the drive gear on the cam was shearing,
okay,
which is common on these. So I wanted to keep the cam. That meant I had to figure out a different ignition system and a different oiling system than stock, because I could no longer drive the distributor or the oil pump anymore. The gear was all sheared off.
Well, what I got with that, I wanted to check it out before we came here, so I dropped the cam just to go over everything. And the oil pump here is being eaten. It's brand new cams in there.
That's what'll happen.
I brought it out here saying, you know, I hope I can at least get 2 or 3 passes before it shears, because it's on its way right now.
Yeah, you'll see little bits of metallic goop running down the pan underneath the gear interface. And that's the weakest point of these engines, because they were never designed to turn over 4,000 RPM. They were never designed to make more than maybe 200 horsepower. You know.
Now, so you don't have an oil pump here either. You've got a dry sump.
It's not a dry sump. It's a external wet sump.
Okay.
There's quite a bit of work done to the oil pan. There's trap doors and baffling. It's not a road race pan, but it has trap doors so that when you leave off the brake or you know, light at the starting line, the oil cannot slosh back. It keeps the pickup covered. It'll hold 10 quarts of oil. I at times do run a vacuum system. I have a vacuum pump, but right now it's disconnected. I'm experimenting to see if I get any gains from it. Right. So right now it just vents out to the atmosphere. But like you know, a lot of the pro cars, the mountain motors, you know, comp, super comp, I do have a vacuum pump on it.
How big is the motor?
The motor is stock 225 crank with the K1 long rods, and it has the Wiseco 104 over pistons. So if I'm remembering correctly, if my math is right, it's about a 238.
238?
Yeah, so 225 essentially bored out to a 238.
You want to talk about the cam that's in there?
It's a Schneider cam. It's fairly big.
It sounds smooth, so it's got to have a fairly wide lobe separation, yeah?
Yeah, honestly, I'd have to look at the cam part, and I've done so many of these motors. I'm not. My brain doesn't memorize those figures the way other people do, unfortunately.
So with all of the exoticness, you've got basically a stock Clifford intake?
Yeah, it's just a Clifford intake. Nothing has been done to that. It's got a HVH 2-inch super sucker under the carburetor.
And the carburetor is a 750?
Yeah, it's an Edelbrock, or it's actually a Carter 750 with just jetting done to it and rods. You know, it has nothing's done to the boosters, nothing's done to the air valve in there. Yeah, it's just a 750.
So let's go back a little bit here.
Okay.
Like that. Let's show the transmission is
it's a 904. The transmission is a little bit tricky, although you'd never know it to look at it from the outside. It's got all A&A rollarized internals, Torrington bearings. The gear ratios are stock. It's got aluminum drums. It's got an A&A trans brake. Yeah, the transmission has work done to it.
And what about the converter?
The converter, I have 2 converters for this car. I've got a Midwest and I've got a Cone. Right now the Cone is in there. It's about, I want to say it's about a 2500 stall.
A tight converter.
I have a Midwest converter for it as well, but when I put this trans back together this summer, I put the Cone in it just to try it out, just so I can maybe, if the motor stays together, do some A/B. See if one's better than the other. Yeah.
And the rear end?
8 3/4. It's got a 456 with the spool in it. I've tried 88s, didn't like them. I have a 430. I've got basically every ratio. I think I've got a 513, but I've never put it in. If I was really motivated for this track, I would have probably put the 513 or the 588 in just to see.
And the car weighs what?
Last check, it's approximately just a hair over 2100, so 21 and change without me.
That's what mine was, 2,116 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's all plexiglass, all Lexan with the glass, the windshields, and I've cut a lot out. It's still steel, but,
right, but barely.
You know, this stuff blows around on the trailer when I'm towing.
So Greg, what is your favorite part of this car? What's the trickiest part of this car?
I don't know what's the most trick. Well, I guess it's got to be the head, right? Because with the Slant Six, you're nowhere without doing a head.
See, we didn't even talk about the head.
Yeah, the head is, I'm trying to remember the valve sizes. It's probably 150 exhaust, 178 intake.
Okay.
And the head was done by Mike Jeffrey, who's an ex-Nebraska racer. One of his cars, the blue Buzz and Half Dozen, is his old car, one of his old cars. But that head was done by Mike.
Okay.
And again, there's no billet heads for these. You can't go to Indy cylinder head. They don't want to deal with Slant Sixes. They don't support this platform. So it's got an iron head, and we've massaged it to the best of our ability.
Great. So it's the most creative race car I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's like I said, if something comes to my head and I want to drill out rivets and cut something off and remake a panel, I just do it. I don't really care about how it looks. It's very functional.
But it's got a look all its own. I mean, you could spot this thing from...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And what are the best numbers of this so far?
8th mile, it's been into the 730s. And the engine and transmission have had so many different configurations with brakes and stuff like that. I've always had the same head. But 730s, I think 2017, 2018, I was fairly successful with the car. 730s for the 8th mile. And a few years ago, I got an 1160 out of it at Mason-Dixon for a quarter mile.
Well, Bo, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. Thanks for having the event.
Awesome car. And where are you racing this next in case somebody wants to check it out in person?
Well, I do some testing up in Pittsburgh Raceway Park well, not every Friday night, but when they have test and tune on Friday nights, a lot of times that's why I go. I'm only 30 miles from that racetrack. It's up in New Alexandria, PA, Westmoreland County. And the next race that I'm actually planning to take it to is London Dragway in October. They have a all Mopar meet, and we're supposed to have a Slant Six points race there.
London, Kentucky, is that?
London, Kentucky, yes.
We may make it up there for that.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. It's a points race, all Slant Six. Basically, if it has a Slant Six block, you can race in the points series. It's a run what you brung class. Anything, nitrous, boost, superchargers, turbochargers, E85, alcohol, fuel, whatever.
Well, I learned some stuff about the car today, not good things, but I think I may be able to find a few more horsepower and join you again with there.
We would love to have you. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you again, brother.
All right, thank you, Tony. Take care.
That's it. Trickest Slant Six race car I've ever seen. See you tomorrow.